Coming up on our newscast tonight. While making rapid progress in summit preparations, President Moon Jae-in hints at the possibility of a trilateral meeting between the leaders of Seoul, Washington, and Pyongyang. The presidential office continues to unveil key parts of its constitution amendment proposal. The changes are designed with decentralization in mind to empower local governments and to curb real estate speculation. A confirmation hearing on the reappointment of the current governor of Korea's central bank is held, making Lee Ju-yeol the first BOK chief this century to serve a second term. NEWSCENTER begins now. It's 8 p.m. here in Korea, live from Arirang Tower in Seoul. This is NEWSCENTER. Welcome to our program. I'm Daniel Choi. The Moon Jae-in administration is making rapid progress in getting ready for the upcoming Inter-Korean summit. Not only that, the president hinted at a possible trilateral meeting following the two one-on-ones. Our chief Cheongwon correspondent Moon Gun-young starts us off.
남북 정상회담에 이어서 열릴 북미 정상회담은 회담 자체가 세계사적인 일입니다. 장소에 따라서는 더욱 극적인 모습이 될 수도 있습니다. 그리고 진전 상황에 따라서는 남북미 3국 정상회담으로 이어질 수도 있을 것입니다.
South Korean President Moon Jae-in's first mention of the possibility of a trilateral summit following the first two one-on-ones, which the president stressed should focus on ending the nuclear threat on the Korean peninsula once and for all. The remarks came as he chaired the second meeting of the South Interagency Preparation Committee for the Inter-Korean Summit between President Moon and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un late next month. U.S. President Donald Trump has also said he would meet the North Kim by the end of May. The historic rendezvous between President Moon and North Korean leader Kim are set to take place on the southern side of the border between the two Koreas in the truce village of Panmunjom, and it could also serve as a venue for a possible three-way meeting between Seoul, Pyongyang, and Washington.
우리는 한반도의 핵과 평화 문제를 완전히 끝내야 합니다. 남북이 함께 살든 따로 살든 서로 간섭하지 않고 서로 피해 주지 않고 함께 번영하며 평화롭게 살 수 있게 만들어야 합니다.
However, the South Korean leader added that cannot be made possible without the role of the U.S.
President Moon said the establishment of a lasting peace on the Korean peninsula can only be made possible with the guarantee from the United States, meaning normalization of North Korea-U.S. relations and economic cooperation involving Pyongyang and Washington.
Also discussed in Wednesday's meeting were the composition of an advisory panel made up of 40 to 45 experts, as well as the creation of a media-friendly support system. The members of the preparation committee will now propose to North Korea holding high-level talks next Thursday on the northern side of the border in the truce village of Panmunjom to set the date as well as the agenda to be discussed at the Leaders' Summit in late April. The Blue House says South Korea will be represented by three officials headed by Unification Minister Cho Myung-gun. Moon Gun-young, Arirang News, the Blue House.
An inspection team from South Korea will be visiting Pyongyang for a 3-day stay. They're tasked with checking out the performance facilities for the concert by artists from Seoul, the first such a show in over a decade. For details, let's turn to our Oh Jung-hee.
A 6-member advance team from South Korea is to leave for North Korea on Thursday for a 3-day-long prior inspection. The visit comes as part of preparations for the South Korean art troupe delegation slated to perform in the north for the first time in 13 years.
An advance team will be visiting Pyongyang for 3 days, starting March 22nd. A few staff members and government officials will go to Pyongyang via Beijing.
The team will be comprised of 6 performance experts and government officials. They'll be looking over technical aspects of the performances like lights, stage, and sound, as well as check the art troupe's accommodation and travel route. While the official repertoire is yet to be confirmed, the Unification Ministry says Seoul and Pyongyang will continue discussions via the communications channel at the Truce village of Panmunjom for further preparatory arrangements. Whether North Korean leader Kim Jong-un will be watching the performance is not yet known. The ministry added Seoul is closely coordinating with Washington for the upcoming concert in Pyongyang. The South Korean art troupe will be comprised of some 160 members. The lineup of South Korean artists to perform in Pyongyang includes names such as Jo Yong-pil and Lee Sun-hee, as well as current K-pop artists such as the female idol group Red Velvet. 오정희, Arirang News.
Staying with that topic, we now have a complete picture of what the South Korean art troupe to perform in Pyongyang would look like. From ballad singers to K-pop idols, the team is comprised of some of the nation's most celebrated artists. Each one has a list of stars set to cross the border for the historic concert.
Headed by the South Korean singer and composer Yoon Sang, the nation's art troupe that's visiting Pyongyang includes some of South Korea's most popular and well-renowned pop artists. Living legend Jo Yong-pil is one of the artists on the list. Having made his debut 50 years ago, Jo had numerous record-breaking albums and hit songs, including Mona Lisa and Bounce. But on top of the pop songs, Jo also sang songs that long for one's hometown and the olden days of Korea, arousing deep emotions in older fans. And with such a wide range of music genres and popularity across the generations, Jo had even held a solo concert in Pyongyang 13 years ago. Choi-jinhee and Lee Sun-hee are also some South Korean pop queens who are familiar to North Koreans. Next month's concerts will be the fourth time Choi will be performing in the North and the second time for Lee. Both artists had performed in numerous concerts promoting unification in the early 2000s. And one of Lee's songs, Dear Jay, was also performed by the North Samjian Orchestra last month during their performance in Gangneung for the Pyeongchang Olympics. But besides these pop legends, the troupe also consists of artists who will cover a wide range of musical genres. For instance, Baek Ji-young, Ali, and Jung-in are South Korea's female singer-songwriters who've written and performed emotion-filled songs and ballads. And to add some drum beats and excitement, one of Seoul's best-known rock singers, Yoon Do-hyun, will also take to the stage. There will also be some popular K-pop stars. The idol group Girls' Generation's Jaein, who's already collaborated with the Samjian Orchestra in Seoul last month, will this time have a chance to stand in front of a North Korean audience. Red Velvet will be the only idol group to be performing in the North. With their catchy songs and flashy dance performances, the group has won numerous prestigious prizes and awards in South Korea. With just around 10 days to prepare for the performance, there are many eyes on how the art troupe will organize the first South Korean artist stage in Pyongyang in 13 years. Lee Ju-yeol, Arirang News.
Moving on to other stories now, the 13th South Korea-United States Integrated Defense Dialogue wrapped up on Tuesday. At the two-day meeting in Washington, the allies agreed their cooperation contributed to the success of the Pyeongchang Winter Olympics, as well as the planning for the upcoming Inter-Korean Summit. Both sides vowed to further strengthen bilateral ties to work towards complete, verifiable, and irreversible dismantlement of the regime's nuclear program. Seoul's defense ministry emphasized the importance of drawing out a sincere change in behavior from Pyongyang while maintaining sanctions and pressure on the Hermit Kingdom. The International Atomic Energy Agency announced they are ready to carry out inspections on North Korea's nuclear activity if denuclearization talks with Pyongyang are successful. Officials from Seoul expressed hopes the nuclear watchdog could play an important role in the near future. Kwon Jang-ho has more from their latest meeting.
South Korean officials met with representatives of the International Atomic Energy Agency on Wednesday. With Seoul and Washington gearing up for talks with Pyongyang, the meeting with the IAEA was a chance to start putting in place the mechanisms that will be involved in monitoring North Korea if respective summits end on a positive note.
I believe this meeting will serve as a good opportunity for both of us to draw lessons from our past experiences regarding the Korean nuclear issue. Also, we can exchange very candid views on what kind of actions we can take, when the time is right for that.
The Deputy Director General of the nuclear watchdog was emphatic in his response.
We are ready to resume monitoring verification activities in the DPRK as soon as the political environment agreements and our mandate from the Board of Governors will allow.
North Korea has a checkered history with the IAEA. The agency was the primary body tasked with monitoring the regime's nuclear activities when previous promises of denuclearization were in place. However, despite efforts by the nuclear watchdog, Pyongyang was able to continue its nuclear weapons program. The last time the inspectors were in North Korea was in 2009, before they were kicked out shortly before Pyongyang's second nuclear test. The agency's effectiveness at keeping tabs on the regime has been questioned before, but South Korea, the US and the international community are likely to call on the IAEA inspectors again if an agreement to denuclearize is reached. Seoul's foreign ministry said that the nuclear watchdog official will also meet with Seoul's nuclear envoy Lee Do-hun on Thursday to continue discussions. Kwon Jang-ho, Arirang News.
The nation's top office has been disclosing the content of its proposed revision to the Korean Constitution. In the second part of its detailed summary, Cheongwade explained its approach to the decentralization of power and what it calls economic democratization. Hwang Ho-jun tells us more.
Seoul. Area-wise, the metro area takes up only 12% of South Korea. But with more than half of the country's 50 million plus population, it's home to 74% of the nation's top 1,000 corporations and 80% of the top 20 universities. According to the Blue House, the administration's bill seeks to change that by boosting the authority and autonomy of local governments.
President Moon said decentralization and balance are indisposable values, and that through coexistence and cooperation, they are the best strategy for sustainable national development.
Stressing the need for strong local governments, the Blue House said the revised constitution will stipulate in its general provisions South Korea's identity as a country striving for decentralization. The administration's proposal will make it easier for local governments to make their own laws by expanding their competencies. It will also pursue decentralization by allowing local governments to set their own tax rates. And to make the rules clear, the bill stipulates that local governments will pay for their own administration, while the projects they undertake will be paid for by the central government or other municipalities. Also, to develop regions outside Seoul, the revision would allow for the national capital to be changed through legislation if it becomes necessary to relocate government functions or agencies. It's something that the courts ruled impossible under the current constitution when the previous Nomuhyun administration tried to relocate the capital to Chungcheongnam-do province in 2004. In addition to decentralization, the government bill focuses what the Blue House calls economic democratization. The bill would add the word coexistence to the economy section of the constitution to stress the need for the nation to strive for economic fairness and equality. On that note, the government has decided to define a concept called public ownership of land in the revised constitution, which would allow the state to impose restrictions and/or obligations for public purposes in an effort to put an end to excessive real estate speculation.
A constitution must uphold the spirit of the times, and today the people are demanding decentralization as well as remedies for inequality and unfairness.
Wednesday's briefing at the Blue House was a second of its kind on the proposed revisions. The last one will take place on Thursday on matters concerning the proposed form of government. Unless the National Assembly comes up with its own revision bill, the Blue House will submit its proposal next Monday. Hwang Ho-jun, Arirang News.
During a confirmation hearing at the National Assembly, it's decided Lee Ju-yeol will begin a second term as the chief of Korea's central bank. The BOK governor who served under the previous administration was tapped by President Moon Jae-in to reprise his role earlier this month. Kim Hye-sung has the highlights from that session.
On the same day as his confirmation hearing, the National Assembly has given the green light to Bank of Korea Governor Lee Ju-yeol to serve a second term. In his hearing Wednesday, Lee said he will maintain an accommodative monetary policy to support the country's economic recovery, given that demand-side inflationary pressure is expected to be fairly low. He emphasized the need for caution, saying that there's extra uncertainty in the global economy because of the rise of trade protectionism and major advanced countries normalizing their monetary policies, and that domestic economic conditions and the financial markets should be monitored closely. In his first term, which started 4 years ago, Lee lowered the benchmark rate 5 times to a record low of 1.25% and then raised it to 1.5% last November. He has since signaled that any further rate hikes will be gradual in view of the subdued inflationary pressures. Domestically, Lee pointed to the growing income gap, the aging population, as well as household debt of around $1.35 trillion as factors undermining Korea's economic growth potential. As for the Bank of Korea's independence from the government, the governor said he feels enormous responsibility and that he believes President Moon's decision to reappoint him was made to strengthen that independence and keep monetary policy consistent. With another 4 years to begin next month, he becomes the first two-term governor of the BOK since the 1970s. Kim Hae-sung, Arirang News.
Trade tensions mount again between Seoul and Washington, this time over anti-dumping tariffs on hot-rolled intermediate steel products. The U.S. Commerce Department made its final decision over the anti-dumping investigations of carbon and alloy steel wire rods sold in the States. The decision will greenlight tariffs on steel products from 5 countries, including South Korea, Italy, and the United Kingdom, for 5 years. Korean steel company POSCO was assigned a maximum tariff of just over 40%, while British steel firms were given a maximum tariff of nearly 150%. Financial policymakers and central bank governors from G20 member nations sat down for talks in Argentina. The meeting focused on global economic challenges as well as ways to tackle them. Cha Sang-mi shares with us what was discussed.
Finance ministers and central bank governors from the world's top 20 major economies agreed in Buenos Aires on Tuesday that further dialogue on trade is necessary amid the threat of a global trade war. The G20 financial leaders were at a 2-day summit in the Argentinian capital, discussing global economic developments and ways to strengthen the contribution of trade. They also addressed global economic challenges posed by transformative technologies, infrastructure, and cryptocurrency assets. When it comes to protectionism, the financial leaders agreed to recognize the need for further dialogue and actions, but did little to calm worries over the threat to trade posed by U.S. metals tariffs.
And I think this is an important point to have all the G20 members acknowledging the difficulty linked to steel overcapacity. The second point is that we have also made very clear that unfair trade conditions are also at the root of our difficulties.
As for the crypto assets, the G20 leaders called on regulators to continue to monitor cryptocurrencies and risks that stem from them, and raised issues ranging from consumer and investor protection to money laundering. Cha Sang-mi, Arirang News.
The court hearing of Lee Myung-bak's arrest warrant is delayed after the ex-president made it clear he would not be taking part in it. The Seoul Central District Court was scheduled to hold the session on Thursday at 10:30 a.m. local time, but his absence deemed it necessary to postpone the hearing. There are other options, though. One would be making the decision without questioning the former leader and instead going over the interrogation records and other evidence from the investigation with Lee's lawyers. The other choice would be calling in the ex-president for further questioning on a different date. The court's decision is expected to be finalized tomorrow. The trend in Korea's coffee market seems to be leaning towards accessibility and cost-effectiveness. Many cafes have been introducing high-quality cup of joe at affordable prices, and now convenience stores are also seeing sales of these products increase dramatically. Kim Mo-kyun sheds light on this brewing change.
The coffee market in Korea has been expanding at a rapid pace. From around $2.8 billion in 2007, its market size in 2017 surpassed the $10 billion mark. This means that the average Korean drank a total of 512 cups of coffee in 2017. However, amid high coffee prices, the new trend in Korea seems to focus on accessibility and cost effectiveness. Since 2015, many convenience stores in Korea have been selling takeout brewed coffees for less than $1.4, which is nearly 1/3 of coffee prices in some franchise coffee shops. A manager of a branch of a well-known convenience store said that he has seen sales skyrocket over recent years.
I think the demand for these coffees is rising because in 2016, our store sold around 8 to 9 cups a day. But lately, we've seen sales go up to 32 cups.
Another popular Korean convenience store chain said that it has sold over 100 million cups of coffee across its stores since it first launched its brewed coffee service in 2015. Affordable pastries sold alongside the coffee also seem to catch the eyes of customers.
I tend to reach out for this coffee a lot, not only because it tastes good, but because it's really affordable, and I don't have to worry about the time when I purchase it.
An expert in the industry says that the latest trend shows that coffee has now become a daily consumable.
Coffee is not just a beverage anymore in Korea. It has become a part of our daily lives, be it in the morning or after lunch. So it's natural for people to become more cautious about the price.
She said that with the continuing growth of the market and with the increasing number of single households in Korea who prioritize convenience, the trend in demand for cheaper, more easy-to-buy products will likely continue in the near future. Kim Mo-kyun, Arirang News.
Normally in the past, Koreans would welcome the coming of spring, but in recent years, not so much. Warmer weather meant they have to protect themselves from fine dust. While China is seen as the key source of the problem, proving it was a challenge. But according to our Kim Yo-sun, local researchers now have enough data to show there's a clear connection. Take a look.
Toward the end of January 2017, Korea was covered in a blanket of ultrafine dust. This was when China began its celebration of Spring Festival, also known as Chunjie. While China is known to be associated with South Korea's worsening air quality, proving this scientifically was a challenge, as particles similar to the compound of ultrafine dust are also emitted through domestic industrial and agricultural activities. Yet a group of Korean researchers have proved that China is responsible for a lot of the nation's fine dust through real-time measurements of potassium and levoglucosan, which constitute ultrafine dust. While potassium is emitted during fireworks and biomass combustion, levoglucosan is only emitted during biomass combustion. The research team found the concentration of potassium in the atmosphere increased 7-fold in South Korea at the end of January last year, while levels of levoglucosan remain the same.
We proved that pollutants emitted from fireworks were carried all the way to Korea.
The researchers say this is a more accurate measurement compared to satellite video, conventionally used to measure air quality, as it only provides a macroscopic view of airflow.
This research will likely be used to study how various pollutants affect the concentration level of ultrafine dust in Korea.
The study, which could be crucial evidence for establishing policies to reduce fine dust in Northeast Asia, will also be published in next month's edition of the international scientific journal Atmospheric Environment. Kim Yo-sun, Arirang News.
Time to turn to Michelle Bak at the Weather Center for the updates you need. Michelle, this is the time when people expect to see flowers blooming. Now we have snowstorms. How are we expecting conditions to change or improve from here on?
Well, Daniel, most of the country saw snow all day long, and in regions like Gangwon-do and Gyeongsang, the provinces, it will continue snowing heavily at least until past midnight. Now, meanwhile, a strong wind advisory also continues being in effect for the East Coast. Now, for most regions of the country, 1 to 5 centimeters of snow are still in store at least before sunrise, and up to 8 centimeters of snow are expected in the mountainous regions of the nation, of the east part of the nation. And tomorrow morning is going to be just as cold as today, so starting out to just 1 degree Celsius. Daegu and Busan are going to be similar at 1 and 2 degrees respectively. Afternoon readings will be a tad warmer than today, but still lower than the seasonal average. Seoul peaks to 12 degrees, Gwangju and Busan both marks 11 degrees. Now, starting Saturday, the mercury will gradually rise to seasonal levels, heralding on the return of the spring in full swing. I'll leave you with the weather conditions around the world.
That's all we have for you on tonight's edition of Arirang News Center. As always, thanks for staying with us.